Going on, everybody? It's your boy OG Mike. I'm back with another one. All right, so I'm just here to kind of like get on like probably more of a sort of a popular slash unpopular opinion, uh, and that's in regards to one of the best all time MCs slash rappers of all time, which is Eminem. Um, and my unpopular opinion to me is that he is low key overrated. Uh, but before I get into that, I want to get into some of his. Want to get into some of his good points. All right, so I'm not just going off the hip and just bashing the guy or whatever the case may be, because the guy is a phenomenal rapper. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about Eminem, he's very technically sound. All right, so this guy is like one of like a one of one type of guy. Like when it comes to like multi syllables and stuff like that, this guy Eminem is like you'd have to say if not number one, he's or if not like top three, he's probably number one. Period. Because nobody is doing what he's doing when it comes to that style of rap or that style of MCing. You know what I'm saying? And he's always been that way since day one. So and my introduction to Eminem, of course, like probably 90% of y'all was the Slim Shady LP. So when that dropped and it was kind of backed by Dr. Dre, it's you know what I'm saying? We had no choice but to go check it out. It was like I said, you talking about Dr. Dre? Dr. Dre that just left that bro not too long ago. And then he went over there to or just to create his own label, which was Aftermath. And then, Eminem's like the first one that jumped out there that was, you know, that was an Aftermath product that, I'm pretty sure like most of us were at the time were agreeing with. We were like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? He found him a white guy out of Detroit that can just, rap, incredibly like that. And then when you look at Eminem, you have to also look at his ability to kind of piece words together uh, alongside with the multi syllables. All right. So when you see a guy uh, that can fit words together, like you remember, the whole thing that went viral with him talking about, what rhymes with orange and stuff like that. He was doing that on the Slim Shady LP, man. Foreign and orange. He been doing that. You know what I'm saying? So he's, like I said, I'm not here to bash the guy completely, but I'm gonna show you why he's completely overrated. But like I said, let me get back into like all the good points of him. All right. So alongside with kind of fitting words together, um, he has uh, he has like a I would say like his background in battle rapping. That's 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 probably one of the things that probably helps because if you really look at battle rapping, especially between uh, big platforms, Smack being number one, Smack URL. That's the caviar of battle rap. You know what I'm saying? So for those of you who know about smacking them. That's the style, and I'm pretty sure like the local Detroit uh, platforms are probably like similar to Smack because that's a completely gritty grimy type city. So you know what I'm saying, and so the raps are probably just matching that. Half of them guys probably talking reality whenever they're up on stage rapping and stuff like that. And Eminem is cut from that cloth when it comes to rapping. Now, I'm not too sure about this as far as his like his actual background of how real his raps are and stuff like that because Eminem's style has always been kind of psychotic mixed in with satire. To me when he during his early run. And then, overall, Eminem is an anomaly. So, you're a white guy coming from probably a majority black city in Detroit, because I think Detroit has probably, probably close to 500 million or 500,000 or probably a million black people more than, most cities, you know what I'm saying? And that's alongside with, places like where I'm from and, like Atlanta and stuff like that. Detroit has always been, uh, heavily populated with black people. Uh, and when you're a white guy and you're walking into a room, you know, surrounded by black people, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to, kind of like toughen up because it's gonna be a tough crowd. You know what I'm saying? And they're not gonna respond, or at least off back. You're gonna think as a white guy, you're gonna be like, oh man, I ain't gonna respond to none of this, man. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna try anyways and see how they, how they take it. So yeah, that he's incredible once you listen to him. You know what I'm saying? So, um, and the guy, here's another big piece. The guy studies the dictionary, which is incredible and stuff like that. Like because most rappers today, most rappers today are not looking to use stuff like dictionary, the thesaurus, or anything like that that's gonna like enhance their wordplay and stuff like that. That's why like I genuinely uh, am still like one of those guys that think the '90s was the best cut era for MCs, and I would say maybe the '80s is like number two, but uh, well actually yeah, I would say early 2000s is number two, and then probably '80s number three, and it's only because guys from the early 2000s you had to think about those guys like Cassie Fab and people like that were coming in, and as well as the ones that were kind of not as famous, not as popular, but they were still like MCs that'll run you off the map when it comes to rhyming and stuff like that, especially from a battle rap standpoint. Yeah, bro, there was a lot of them. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like Eminem is very well versed as a student in hip hop. Like that guy knows other people's verses like the back of their hands and stuff like that. Like that one moment where he was I think he was rapping DOC's verse, to him, and that's incredible and stuff like that. Just to know those types of verses, and he's just incredible from that standpoint. Um, Another thing about Eminem, which I don't think is like the biggest point in why I think he's kind of overrated, because him being overrated is not due to him per se. It's more due to his fans and stuff like that, especially the ones that are considered, stands and stuff like that, as they say. So the ones that are considered stands, they'll say like, "Hey, Eminem, can't nobody beat him. He's smoked some of your favorite rappers and on their tracks and stuff like that." And they say a lot of wild stuff, and I said, well, to me, I'm like, what about the other rappers that were considered great, especially during the '90s, that came from the past? You know what I'm saying? What about those guys? You can't just like overstep everybody. You know what I'm saying? And you have to start primarily with the '80s. You know what I'm saying? And then include your '90s rappers. And rap, hip hop, period is subjective. But the way I look at everything, I'm looking at everything as far as like, uh, what points does everybody have in common? And most rappers, uh, from between the '80s and '90s, especially your black and brown rappers, they have more relatable content, which to me Eminem doesn't have. But I'll get into that. But like you still got to name you like your Rakims, your uh, Cool G Rap, your uh, Big Daddy Kane for some, even like Chuck D. And then you start to work your way up into like Pop, Big, uh, who else like Ice Cubes, you know what I'm saying? List goes on, and then your Jay Z and your Nas, you know what I'm saying? And you keep going, and then you have like your rappers that's coming out the South that's also great. Don't forget about them, please don't, because I know some of y'all like to glide right over like rappers from the South, and I can't stand that, bro. Like, please include your Scarface, your 8 Ball, MJG, your Ti's, your Jeezys, your Andre 3000, your Big Boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, them guys are great, man. Please don't like skip over them guys because I hate it that it's like that. But that's another subject that I might get into later on down the line. But back to Eminem, you know what I'm saying? Now, let's get into his album sales. 220 million total sold. That's incredible, for a rapper. But like I always say, you know what I'm saying, sometimes some of that kind of falls under the whole stand thing, and I can't really, stand the stands like that because they doing too much, you know what I'm saying, and sometimes they're not 100% being truthful to judging Eminem's content and stuff like that, and it's okay to keep it real. My favorite rapper is Jay-Z by far. You know what I'm saying? But will I sit up there and say Kingdom Come is better than anything Eminem put out? I'd be wild for saying that. You know what I'm saying? And that's probably one of Jay-Z's worst albums. You know what I'm saying? But I'm pretty sure it's gems on there that people can pick up and stuff like that. But in comparison to other albums, that's probably one of his worst albums. So same thing with Eminem. All right, and I've read comments all over the internet, especially between places like IG and Facebook and stuff like that. There's guys that are like hardcore Eminem fans, but they're not stans because they keep it real and they say stuff like uh, recovery was trash, encore was trash, stuff like that, and they keeping it real. And I wish guys would keep it real uh, more often than anything. You know what I'm saying? Especially if that's your favorite artist. You don't have to sit up there and just kind of like just be a pushover when it comes to stuff like that. That don't make any sense, man. Just keep it real. That's it. Keep it real. A lot of those albums are not even in comparison to like Eminem's first 3 album or 4 album run. And most of the guys that have listened to, I purchased those albums. This is back when I ain't have no money. I copping this off the bootleg, man. You know what I'm saying? And everybody know I go downs in the in most black cities and stuff like that. Bootleg, man, got you. So, but anyways, those albums when I was listening to them, actually I bought that first album. You know, uh, or I had my grandmother purchase that first album because I was too young at that time to even um, have a job or anything like that. But Slim Shady LP, I wanted to check it out because I was curious. Uh, out of the small handful of albums I asked my grandmother for, I really requested that Slim Shady LP. Um, and that was a dope album, and I'll get into that uh, in the video as well. Now, Eminem, going back to his album sales, 220 million sold, uh, which is incredible. 32 point, 25, million. And I'm assuming that's during the early 2000s because it's stuff that I looked up on the internet, and I said, "Wow, this is incredible," and stuff like that. Um, and then you have to compare that into uh, other artists that were all time selling artists like the Beatles and Michael Jackson. Now the Beatles sold 500 million, and Eminem has sold basically just about half of that, you know, or almost half of that, uh, and that's incredible for a hip hop artist. Um, and that's another thing. And Eminem is really like a traditional hip hop artist. Like Eminem would have uh, fit even better had he came out like 93, 94, around that time period, because that's when you started to see like more guys kind of stepping outside the box with what they did, like Tribe Called Quest and uh, like what's my guy's name, man? Um, God, I can't even think, man, bro. But more so along the lines of those guys, Native Tongue and all those guys. You know what I'm saying? Like those guys were kind of doing their own thing and kind of being more eclectic with the way that they presented, their rhymes and stuff like that. And Eminem, being and Redman too. You know what I'm saying? Golly, bro. And then also alongside with Redman, like uh, just not just Method Man, but like Wu Tang as a whole. They were incredible. They did their own style and stuff like that. And you couldn't even match that. That was like an incredible run for Wu Tang. As a introduction to the world. So Eminem would have fit in those spaces perfectly. Because he was doing his own thing. Um, yeah, and so in comparison to those albums, 500 million, 340 million for Michael Jackson, and to have 220 million as a hip hop artist is just by far like incredible feat. So that's like something that's unheard of, especially based on the history of hip hop. The history of hip hop. Hip hop was kind of you know closed out from major platforms during its early runs and stuff. So and I wish the younger generation would give a little bit more credit to guys like Run DMC and Slick Rick and uh, Fat Boys and all them that was making those incredible runs. Beastie Boys, all these guys that were pushing forward, the and LL Cool J. Them guys were you know those are your basically like your secondary pioneers of hip hop because hip hop came out in like late 70s or so. So when you got guys like that, you have to really thank them and don't make fun of them and stuff like that. Because I've seen stuff online that's just kind of disrespectful, and they'll disrespect the guys because of their flow and stuff like that. But anyways, we'll save that for another conversation. I just sometimes when I think about stuff, I just got to say something about it. But anyways, also here's another thing. As far as Eminem goes, he was 100% backed by Dr. Dre, and his album I think that was 100, just about 100% produced by Dr. Dre, as well as like other producers that are not as well known. And I think Eminem has stuck with those particular producers that work alongside with Dr. Dre. Um, and let me tell you something like that OG Slim Shady flow that he used. I'd say between maybe I guess you could say all the way up to his third album. Uh, Incredible, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because it was his own style, and that's what you know in the '90s. That's what that was all about. Kind of creating your own thing and not copying off the next man. And this is why sometimes I get kind of frustrated with some of the artists that are out today, because there are artists that multiple artists, many artists that use their own thing, but there's a lot of artists that copy those artists that are a little bit more popular. Uh, and it's kind of frustrating to watch and stuff like that. Um, but hey, that's just the way things are. So, but like I said, we'll say that for another conversation. It's the only thing we can do. But back to Eminem again, and so these are the things that I believe are great points for Eminem. This guy is like a one of one. So if somebody said Eminem is in my top 5 or top 10, I can disagree with him on that. He's very incredible and stuff like that. But he is overrated. Trust me. And I'm about to get into that right now. So starting with, and let's just say this because this is just my opinion. I think Slim Shady LP is Eminem's greatest album by far. Uh, this is Eminem's Illmatic. This is Eminem's Ready to Die. This is Eminem's, you know, 36 Chambers. This is Eminem's Reasonable Doubt. You know what I'm saying? Like his first album to me is like, who he really is. All the other stuff is just, probably like him being creative and stuff like that. But this is his. I mean, he's being creative on this album too, but this is like really who he is and stuff like that. Just psychotic satire because he was already rapping like this before. He got with Dr. Trey. There's many clips of him, rapping beside some of his D12 brethren and stuff like that. His and those shout out to those guys. Shout out to D12 because very talented group, and they're very diverse. And I wish they would have came out in the '90s as well. I mean, like same time period, like 93, 94, or something like that. And them guys fit perfectly. God, man. Well, this is where it starts to kind of break down. All right, so Eminem, I believe he was doing a lot of stuff for like shock value when he first came out, and kind of kind of gimmicky when I look at him. Because when you look at him, he started dissing pop stars out of nowhere. I was like, what's that about, man? It's funny, but you know what I'm saying? What's that really about? And I think that he was just trying to, get his, stuff out there. So, why not, go at him? But I'll give him this, what I'm saying? Because when 50 Cent came out, and if anybody knows, 50 before Get Rich or Die Trying came out, Rob the Industry was, one of those ones. But only difference is between him and 50 is that 50 went at, you know, the big faces of hip hop at the time. Jay-Z, Missy Elliott, Juvenile, whoever was hot at the time around 98, 99. That's who he was coming for. And, he did it respectfully and disrespectfully. So, what I'm saying? But it was all, just in fun and stuff like that. He had no problems with nobody and stuff like that. But he's just trying to get his name out there because 50's a hustler, you know what I'm saying? So he's gonna try to, and he knows controversy sells. That's why 50 sticks to the script to still to this day, you know what I'm saying? You'll see him if you follow his Instagram or anything like that. He's always getting on people, man, randomly. But yeah, in comparison to 50, Eminem, he's just started dissing people out of nowhere, like Britney Spears, Michael Jackson, uh, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, man, the list goes on, man. Anybody that was a heavy pop star during 98, 99, 2000. Yeah, that's who Eminem was targeting and stuff like that. I believe like Marilyn Manson, who's not really a pop star. I think it's more like rock music and stuff like that. So, but he would be considered a pop artist at the time because he was very popular at the time. So, but yeah, and I was like, I said, come on, man. I said they ain't got nothing to do with hip hop, man. They just like off in the cut somewhere, doing their own thing. But yeah, man, it's kind of like I just didn't understand that. It was like why the pop stars and why not like actual MCs that you can go at somebody that can challenge you because he's a very talented guy. And I think that had he put his pen to some of those MCs and then he actually challenged and got responses from them and stuff like that, like 50 did with Jay-Z. I would have loved to see those types of battles right then and there, and which Eminem to me never really had. Um, and so and I'll get into that as well. Uh, Now Eminem's guest verses, all right, and I'm gonna just point out one specifically because I'm not gonna use all his guest verses, but one specifically, y'all know what I'm about to get into, and that's Renegade. All right, Renegade. His verse on there is very, 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 very overrated. It's not even like when people listen to that Blueprint album. Um, that was right around the time when Jay Z and Nas were going at it. All right, and when Nas said, "And Eminem murdered you on your own shit," you know what I'm saying? That's what led to all that, and that's why people believe like, yeah, he's better than Jay Z. You can't beat this, that, and the third. I said, bro, you have to break down the lyrics into like how they were and what they were talking about, um, and that goes as far as like when Eminem was talking about basically the media targeted him, and and at that time there were like things like school shootings and stuff like that, and kids doing all types of crazy stuff that just hit the news, and then they were probably blaming Eminem for all those atrocities and stuff that were happening with children. And we all know, that's your own choice if you decide to start, doing, crazy stuff like that. That has nothing to do with hip hop. Hip hop doesn't influence you in those terms and stuff like that. Hip hop is like any other genre of music. I mean, people. I'll use an example. Like, all right, so once you have things, that goes around the world, like wars and uh, even things that happen within our own country, like stuff that dates back to civil rights movement uh, and things like that. What kind of music would you say that you could blame uh, for those atrocities that happened back then? You gonna blame like jazz music, doo wop music? What you gonna blame on that? You know what I'm saying? Half of that music is either infused with storytelling or it's just 100% about love. So I don't, you know, get that. That doesn't make any sense. So, and then hip hop by the late '80s, they were already kind of targeting people like NWA because of gangster rap, quote unquote. But they don't have anything to do with that. That was basically a whole lifestyle. So when it comes back, so bringing back the Eminem, they don't they can't point the fingers at him. So that's what his verse was about. In Renegade, his verse was about him being targeted by the media. You know what I'm saying? Him taking the blame for stuff that that should start in the homes, and that's why some of those rappers were like, you need to take care of your own kids. You know, they need to be watched. You know what I'm saying? And even Cameron went on Bill O'Reilly and was talking about that. So that's the type of stuff that was talked about in that verse, which why I don't understand. Like, yeah, Eminem killed Jay Z. Where? He didn't kill anybody, man. He was just standing up for himself. That's all that verse was about. And the only thing that kind of threw people off and made it more controversial was basically his flow. That's it. If you really listen to the song, it was his flow. Because if you listen to Jay Z's part, he's talking about stuff that's more relatable to black and brown people, which is struggling, hustling to pay the rent, uh, destabilization of communities. You know why that happens. And we ain't even got to get into that. But single parent homes, stuff like that, stuff that's that most of the people in black and brown communities go through. You know what I'm saying? So that's what made Jay Z's first, go so hard. And then he had, lines, pockets full of hope. You know what I'm saying? That's hard, bro. You know what I'm saying? I can relate to that a little bit more. Pockets full of hope. You know what I'm saying? That's a hard line within itself. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that's supposed to outdo Eminem because that's not what that song was about. You know what I'm saying? That was two different perspectives about being a renegade, and they're using the term renegade to fuel what they were saying on the record. That's it. Guys going around, oh yeah, he just killed him. That wasn't even a battle, man. What are you talking about? This is where I have a problem with Eminem stance. They got to stop that nonsense, man. You know, and it's not that crazy, bro. It's to be comparing both those MCs. Most of these people are still stuck in the early 2000s with that mindset because back then most of us that heard that verse, most of us were teenagers at the time or preteens. You know what I'm saying? You're at an adolescent stage and you're talking about, and you don't even understand. You're just, going with the flow. Like, bro, some of y'all are at the age of, in your 30s and your 40s, early 40s. And I know that y'all still not thinking the same way. Come on now. You know what I'm saying? Just use your mind on that one, man. It's not really, you know, like a real battle between both MCs. And you know what I'm saying? Because both of those verses didn't even go at each other and stuff. So it didn't make any sense. And then here's another line by Jay-Z. My demeanor, 30 years my senior, which tells me that he had to grow up fast. That's all that meant. So these are relatable lines, and this is why I don't think uh, this shouldn't have been compared like that. Not to me. Uh, but if I did have to pick, I'm gonna pick Jay Z because it's just more relatable. But I do like Eminem's verse uh, into which what he was saying because they were trying to crucify him, through the media, and I didn't like that at all because I just thought that was unfair. That man ain't did nothing to nobody. He probably had his ways because he was younger at the time, and that was the old Slim Shady. Cause he was a wild cat, back then. But nah, bro, come on now. He ain't did nothing to nobody, man. And they were just trying to crucify him, just like they did NWA, Tupac, and so many other rappers that fell into the you know the gangster rap quote unquote category. So that's nonsense. And here's another thing, and this goes out to those Eminem stands. Now, Eminem within the last couple of years was featured on one of Nas's projects, and I want to say that was King Disease 3, or it might have been 2. But that particular track, which and you know which track I'm talking about, this is EPMD 2, right? Which features EPMD, and Nas is basically the main guy that's on there, and then it features Eminem. Now that beat had a small switch to it, and it was more open to where you could see what Eminem was doing, and which Eminem has always been known for uh, showmanship on the track. That's why people love him so much, so because he's a very technically sound rapper. And what he was doing on the track, he was also kind of switching flows here and there, but he was pretty much very consistent uh, throughout the whole track. But they had to open up the track, just to let him let him to allow him to let his style kind of flourish on that track in comparison to the other MCs that's on there. And nobody was saying that, you know, oh, he destroyed Nas, he destroyed EPMD, he destroyed Eric Sermon. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? And people just at that particular point were just enjoying music because there was no machine behind it talking about not even machine, but just nobody, at the time that was beefing, kind of like how Jay-Z and Nas were beefing, to say that, like say if Nas was in another beef with somebody during this time and they went over there and was like, it just destroyed Nas on the track. I'm like, nah, that's not what it's about. That's very unfair comparison uh, that that just took place, and I think people should give Jay Z a little bit more respect when it comes to rapping as they do Nas and as they do Eminem because all three of those guys are very incredible. And Nas is my number two. He's my number two, and only slided him up under Jay Z just because of hit records and stuff like that. Other than that, If it wasn't, about hit records or anything like that, Nas easily number one. I just think that he's, that great of a MC, well put together, very creative. It's not even close. But anyways, yeah. So and I want people to go back and listen to that track. You know what I'm saying? And if you guys got anything in the comment section about that track, please let us know. You know what I'm saying? Because that's I don't see Eminem smoking people on the track like that. I just, again, I'm just doing his showmanship thing on the track. It's nothing crazy. But anyways, now here's something else that might be an unpopular opinion, but I think this much about Eminem, and this is not to hate on Eminem, but this is just something that I kind of noticed over the years. To me, I think Eminem kind of lacks more relatable content for the whole goat case and stuff like that. That's what I'm getting at. I just don't think that Eminem has enough relatable content to where people are like, yo, I can relate to that. I hear him on that. His technical skills and stuff like that, he checking those boxes. Gotcha. But as far as like content wise, I don't think so. You know what I'm saying? Because Eminem, especially based off his first couple of albums, since a lot of satire and craziness going on. But you know, rapping wise, it's great. But when it comes to like making a track that people can actually think about, or stuff like that, that's what I'm talking about. Like for example, like Nas has stuff like I Can, and Nas has stuff like I Gave You Power and stuff like that. Uh, and Second Childhood and stuff like that. He has songs like that, and I'm just using Nas as an example to what's kind of relatable, you know, and that's the type of music that I would kind of judge you off of to solidify your case for being a goat. And I just don't see that with Eminem. Eminem has a lot of funny tracks and stuff like that. He has some serious stuff too, like Stan. But Stan low key had satire in it too, if you're really listening to it. But it was very serious track. Stuff like that does happen, especially here in America, especially in the middle of America. Stuff like that does, happen. All right. So, what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm not trying to bash Eminem, but I'm just pointing out stuff that's kind of taking away his case of being just uh, the GOAT, and also solidifying my case to saying that, he's overrated, due to his fans and stuff like that, because they're not listening to Eminem like some of us are listening to. And if you guys got any other things to add on to it, please leave it down there in the comment section, because I want these guys who are stands to listen to reason. Um, and like I said before, Eminem's content is very psychotic, but also mixed in with some satire. So I'm not gonna look at that just as oh, that's the GOAT case and stuff like that. And then his later music, as far as 2010, 2010s up until like now, his music is more I don't know, it's different, and it's not like the Eminem that I like. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I don't hate Eminem at all. But when I was younger, that's the Eminem that I like. And that's another thing. Speaking of youth, uh, me being 40 on the dot, this is you know a lot of the stuff that I just kind of outgrown, and I still say some Shady LP is his best album, but once I'm listening to that, I'm like, uh, some that I can't really revisit like that. Now, if I just wanted to laugh, I could revisit, but I really don't revisit his albums like I do, like Jay Z, Nas, uh, and especially like many '90s Southern artists and stuff like that, because they always talked about game spitting and hustling and stuff like that. So that's the type of music that I like. and I can revisit because it's kind of motivational and stuff like that, and it kind of keeps you on your toes as you're aging as an adult. You know what I'm saying? Uh, and case in point, like Reasonable Doubt. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Reasonable Doubt, man. Whole been telling y'all from jump, man. You know what I'm saying? Hustle, get your money. You know what I'm saying? Take care of your family, stuff like that. All of that is just right there inside of his rhymes. And please, and I know some of the dudes that's Eminem stands, they be like, yeah, it's not relatable because of him shooting, some of these rappers shooting, guns, robbing people, stuff like that. I said, well, the thing about it is that, you know, this stuff still occurs, and really occurs, around the world, robbing and stealing, shooting and killing, stuff like that. A lot of that stuff occurs around the world. So that's more relatable than anything, because these things happen within our communities, uh, whether some of y'all know it or not. You know what I'm saying? But that's like one of the things that I kind of hold against Eminem, because he doesn't really have those types of tracks and stuff like that. He might have like a verse or two, but that's about it. And I know some of them guys at the Eminem stands are gonna try to put that stuff down there in the comment section. Go ahead, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause I'll get down there and have a rebuttal for that. Uh, but yeah, man, that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about. Um, Now I would say this, man. So I'm gonna just get straight to this. That's also making Eminem kind of overrated. Now, one thing I know a lot of Eminem stands they'll say is that nobody wants smoke with Eminem. Oh my God, that's the biggest thing. So I'm gonna bring up a few of Eminem's opponents, right, over the past 25 years that he's or 26 or 27 years that he's been rapping. Uh, and you know, smoke. All right, I'm gonna start off with the best one, cannabis. Now, cannabis ain't uh, a bad rapper at all, but let's be real, bro. He's not even the top well-known MCs that's out there. When I mean I'm gonna say not even well-known. I'm gonna say famous MCs that are that you could kind of compare and you would want Eminem to battle. Here's before I get into this list even further. Here's who I want Eminem to battle. I want him to battle people like Jadakiss, Nas, Hove, uh, even like a Cameron. You know what I'm saying? If you've seen Cameron versus 50, you know what I'm talking about. Um, who else? Shoot, man. Styles P. You'll get him. Even some of the guys that's straight out the South, like Ludacris, Ti, and um, people like that. It's so many great rappers that he could have went against back in the day that that could have solidified his spot if he was just talking about. And but here's the thing, Eminem wasn't going to do that because he was a little bit more humble. He had respect for those guys, kind of like and I hate to bring his name up because a lot of you guys probably don't like him. You know what I'm saying? I like him, but some of you guys don't like him. Like how the Game was when he was on G Unit. Game set himself aside from 50's beef because 50 wanted to beef with everybody that was on the New York record, right? But once he heard some of those names, he was like, "Oh, Fat Joe, oh Jadakiss, I'm not beefing with them." You know what I'm saying? So I think Eminem had much respect for a lot of the more well-known guys that were in hip hop that were up there. You know what I'm saying? Because he wasn't battling none of them guys, man. So I think he was just trying to make his way. He was just trying to make his way into the industry and stuff like that, and keep his name on top, in the industry, just by just making the type of music that he loved to make. But all right, back to the list. I'm getting to it. Cannabis, Everlast, Ja Rule, Insane Clown Posse, MGK, and then before all that, pop stars. And you telling me nobody wants to smoke with Eminem? I think those guys that even if you mention names like Jadakiss and so forth and so on, they're these guys don't understand that these guys are not scared of Eminem, none whatsoever. They respect him just like he respects them. You know what I'm saying? So I don't I don't see how you guys are making this like they're scared or something like that. They say stuff on camera to me out of respect for Eminem. So when people bring up stuff like, yeah, nobody wants smoke, I won't rap with him, blah, 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 they're bigging Eminem up, man. They respect that guy. But if it was a problem, these guys is cut from the hood. What do you mean? Ain't nobody scared of nobody, man. They going they gonna battle, bro. Trust me. I remember they asked Jadakiss one time, and Jadakiss is my number one pick. You've seen what he did, with 50. You've seen what he did at the verses and stuff like that. You've seen what he did when he went against Beanie Siegel. You know what I'm saying? And that was kind of a draw, but you know what I'm saying? Beanie Siegel, another one. I wish Eminem would, bro. That would have been pure chaos. All right? Yeah. Run into them guys and back then when they were all in their prime, that would have them styles would have clashed. Trust me. And then they would have took it to a level higher and stuff like that, just based off of what happened in the past. But Eminem, they would have gave Eminem a run for his money. Trust me. He ain't all what y'all think he is. You know what I'm saying? He's a phenomenal rapper, but please don't think he's just gonna kill these guys off or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He's not gonna sweep them. No, song for song, he ain't sweeping nobody. They'll smoke his boots. Trust me, bro. Now, here's another controversial thing as well. If Eminem was black, he would only sell half. You know what I'm saying? And I honestly, that has some truth, but it's also kind of false at the same time. All right, because to me, the black Eminem, Black Slim Shady is Royce the 5'9". I've been saying this for a long time. It's Royce the 5'9". Very overlooked, very underrated, and puts words and he can do the multi syllables and he can piece words together. You know what I'm saying? That guy is incredible, bro. And he's very overlooked. Didn't even get the same push as Eminem when he came out. And he had a fire song on the radio at the time. Got the name of the track. I'm getting older and stuff like that. But he had a fire track, man, when he first came out, and it was extremely hip hop. But he gets overlooked. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of sad that he's in the same spaces as Eminem, but he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Being from Detroit as well. To me, and no disrespect to D12, but I think Royce the 5'9" should have been the next one up that should have been, pushed a little bit harder coming out of Detroit. And all he needed was the right production behind him. Because in recent years, you can look at freestyles, you can check out some of his latest work. This is incredible, man. And he's on there rapping with other guys. So for you guys that like to compare him to other rappers, he's on there with some great rappers, and you can easily tell that he holds his own. And Royce has always been one of those ones out there, but he's very underrated. Coming out of Detroit, as well as him and Elzai, very underrated. Um, yeah, man, it is what it is on that. Uh, and then it's like no matter how good like Royce's lyrics are, I just don't see Eminem's fan base supporting Royce like that. They really don't. You would figure like oh man, he's rapping along with him, and And then Royce is one of the M's biggest supporters. You know what I'm saying? Anytime M is in a beef, alongside with 50, Royce is right there. And I'm like, where's the fan base from Eminem? And like I said again, Eminem has nothing to do with this. This fans. His fans have a problem. Like they don't support guys like Royce the 5'9". Royce is incredible, man. That's your Black Slim Shady right there, man. Come on now. Oh, and also, bringing back to Eminem when he had, recent beats and stuff like that. I remember when Game went at him. You know what I'm saying? I know most of y'all didn't really like the track and stuff like that, which is okay. But I think what Game's strategy was, he was trying to bait Eminem into battling, and Eminem didn't even take it. You know, but Eminem being a guy that's you know somebody called me out. He's Candyman basically, right? But when Game called him out, he didn't respond. I just didn't understand that one. I said, so hold on, you're responding to MGK, would you want to respond to him? And Game is kind of like a rapper out of Philly. He'll rap for 20 to 30 minutes straight, and he gonna give you bars. I don't care if some of y'all don't like it as far as like him dropping names and stuff like that. I said, what that got to do with anything? I said, Eminem has a style too, and nobody's gonna sit up there and call him out on it every time he raps. Oh, Eminem, he always talking about, kicking the baby or punting the baby, or he's always handing a grenade to a lady, and he's always piecing this. Yeah, it sounds stupid, bro. And so every rapper has their own style and stuff like that. So you have to, respect their styles and stuff. But but you know what I'm saying, is it wasn't too much to ask if he would just went out there and kind of battled him just to either take the W or take the L. You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't kind of respect that one. I was just like, yeah, let's take MGK. MGK now. Not saying MGK is like a bad rapper, but like on the levels of Eminem, we all know that MGK is not on the levels of Eminem. You know what I'm saying? Um, as far as like from the technical standpoint, no. Like M is one of them ones. He's up there, but him not taking the battle with Game, I don't like that, man. That's shaky. You know, it's all good. But anyways, going further into it, moving right along. Uh, Eminem, I have nothing else more, but Eminem is, you know, again, as to summarize it all, Eminem is very incredible. All right. Uh, but he is extremely overrated, and not because of just him. It's more because of his fans, or stands. Because he has fans, and then he has stands, and the stands make everything worse, especially when Eminem is being judged, especially in social media spaces like Instagram and stuff like that. If somebody says, like Eminem, or like recently, all right, Eminem just won like an award or something like that, right? I think he had like best album or something like that, or best song or something like that, and people were like, well, we weren't really listening to him, and this is most of I'm assuming most of the Generation Z guys, and they were like, yeah, we weren't listening to him, we weren't checking for him, you know what I'm saying? We were listening to Kendrick and Drake for the most part. Um, and I kind of agree with that. I said, the biggest, names within the last, you know, little over a year now, to be honest with you, but within the last couple of months, for sure, was, between Kendrick and Drake by far. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a Drake fan at all whatsoever. So, you know what I'm saying? And, Kendrick was that guy. Had a Super Bowl performance, had a performance at one of those award shows, or not a performance, but he had got I think best song of the year at the award show. That's what it was. And come on, man. Eminem, like you know the Abracadabra song was cool and stuff like that. And that was cool because that's you know like that's a different you know take uh, off an '80s song, I believe, that uses the same you know lyrics in the hook. But he's nah, man. Definitely Slim Shady was pretty cool, but nah, man, no. But I think that was one of his better albums. You know, within you know recent years for sure. And it's probably matter of fact probably his best album in recent years, uh, considering the 2010s and 2020s. You know, that's probably one of his better albums. But you know, like I said, it's subjective, uh, and you know the stands and and the fans of Eminem would uh, probably have to take a poll on that one. Man, I wish I had placed a poll over here to actually you know get you guys' opinion on that. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. One of the you know better albums, but I don't think that was overshadowing that whole battle between Drake and Kendrick. You know what I'm saying? So no, no. But you know that kind of concludes what I was you know pointing out for Eminem. Like I said, I'm not here to bash Eminem, but I want to point out stuff to his stance just to let them know that that's that's not it. You know what I'm saying? And Eminem is a very great rapper, but let's not get it twisted. I just don't think that he's better than most of the rappers that are pretty much considered, you know, goats in most people's eyes, which is, you know, your Nas, your Jay Z, Biggie, um, some, you know, of more of a cult following, people like MF Doom and stuff like that. Some people would think, but some people that's in the South, Scarface, Three Stacks, West Coast, Ice Cube, uh, you know, Snoop and all them, you know what I'm saying? They might those would probably be looked at as ghosts before anybody else, you know what I'm saying? And you would have to, you know, look at those guys before you even look Eminem's way, to be honest. Wu Tang, you know, there's it's a co-following for Wu Tang and stuff like that. And to me they got more relatable content than Eminem. And you know, or just better, you know, albums, you know, period. Eminem can rap for sure, but you know, his content is very much so lacking. Uh, but he's funny, you know what I'm saying, and he does have some stuff that's more relatable to him, you know what I'm saying. And if there are guys that are out there that are Eminem fans and stands, you know, if you if you can relate to that, you know, more power to you. But you know, hip hop has always been um, kind of coming from the perspectives of the black and brown community and stuff like that. So, when you know, and not to create any type of race war and thing like that, but when you look at Eminem, you know, and I'm listening to especially his first album, you know, I'm looking for, you know, like what is he really struggling with, you know what I'm saying, or what's going on with him and stuff like that. And most of the stuff that he has is probably in relation to, you know, maybe his mother or something like that, or his girlfriend, or used to be girlfriend, used to be wife, you know. And those are cool joints too, but you know, everybody ain't married, and most of us in the black and brown community, we love our mothers. I'm sorry. I love moms. You know what I'm saying? I say it right here. I love my mother. I know y'all feel the same. Uh, you know, whoever's black and brown and stuff like that. But that's you know how it is. You know, in our communities and stuff like that. You know, you ain't touching mom. You ain't touching big mama either. So yeah, man. But that's it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad you guys are kind of tapping in and stuff like that. And if you do like this content, you know, like, comment, and subscribe. You know, this is OG Mike Show. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so very much. I'll have more content later. You know, coming up. It might be on different things, but yeah, you know what I'm saying, just to you know, tap into the hip hop side a little bit. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this stuff. And if you got anything as far as comments, anything you want to rebuttal, you know, place it down there in the comment section, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure if it ain't me that's gonna get to you, it's gonna be somebody else that feels the same way that I do. And it's just for friendly debates and stuff like that. Nothing too serious. But thank you guys for tuning in again. So G Mike, until next time, peace.